St. Augustine is the oldest continuously lived-in city in America. In 2015, we're going to celebrate our 450th anniversary.
We have tourists and visitors in St. Augustine nonstop. Usually by the end of the year, we've seen over 100,000 people come through just our tour alone. Not all of St. Augustine together. All of St. Augustine together, gosh, they're probably close to 1 million.
St. Augustine is supposed to be the most haunted city in America.
Flagler College was built in the late 1800s by Henry Flagler. He pretty much kicked off tourism in the state of Florida. He was the big ringleader to it all and helped develop Florida. There are a few guests that stay there, one being Henry Flagler, his second wife Ida Alice, one of his mistresses, and there was a little boy. The problem with the mistress was that when she was there, if Ida Alice, Henry's second wife, would come to the hotel, the mistress would be whisked away to her room and kind of hidden so that his wife wouldn't discover the mistress. Well, while the wife was in town, the mistress couldn't leave the room. She had to stay there. The only people she saw were servants. She couldn't go outside, so she ended up getting very depressed. Well, after a couple months of being depressed, she ended up killing herself in the room. So occasionally when girls would get the room, they'd wake up to find the mistress staring at them. A couple weeks into the semester, the girls would ask for a room change, and they'd have full dorms and have to figure out, where am I going to put this other girl at? So since that happened semester after semester, year after year, they completely boarded up the room and don't offer it to anybody. Nobody is allowed to go into that room.
About 100 years before the present fort was built, there were 9 different forts in the area. They were all made out of wood. Wood does not do too well in this ocean environment. And some of them were eaten up by termites, some were destroyed by hurricanes, twice attacked by pirates. And I guess the final straw was in 1668 when the famous British pirate Robert Searles and his men burned the entire city down. They killed a whole slew of people. So that's when the Queen of Spain, I forget what her name was, said, look, you better build a nice strong fort over there in St. Augustine, one that will last. So that's when they got the idea of going over to Anastasia Island and cutting up coquina to use as the material for the fort. So that's why after 300 years of existence, it's still standing.
Well, the fort has had a lot of death, mainly because it's a fort. A lot of killings there. And all the hills that are around the fort are all man-made hills. Maybe literally made of man. We have documents saying that there's people buried on the fort grounds. They just don't say where. So if you go by there during the daytime, and today would be a good day because there's lots of school kids in town, watch them. You'll see them rolling down the hills and just think about who they're rolling over.
A lot of those mounds, I believe, are the bones of Indian prisoners that were held there. In the 1800s, that was called Fort Marion. It was a United States Army post, and the Army held a lot of different Indian tribes prisoner there. There were Kiowas, Cherokees, Apaches, Comanches, and Seminoles who were held there. There's some kinds of stories that there were assassinations there and that they were buried on the grounds of the fort.
When they were building the lighthouse, they'd bring all the bricks over and put them into those old steel railway carts and push the cart to the top of the hill, unload the bricks, and send the cart back down to where the boat was. Well, the girls kept wanting to play in the cart, so their father let them, but then the cart started rolling, and as it picked up speed, it was going faster and faster, and and it went down along the docks, and when it got to the end of the dock, the cart flipped and went straight down. So the girls got a watery death that day. Some of the workers there, if you talk to them, they'll tell you stories of where they've seen the girls playing. One of our former guides, she used to also work at the lighthouse, and she was closing up one evening, set the alarms, walked away, and she had this feeling that she needed to go back. And when she turned around, she saw a little girl waving at her from the windows and thought, oh my gosh, I've locked somebody inside. She ran back to turn the alarm off, and the alarm never registered that anybody was in the building. So she was pretty surprised there. If you go to the lighthouse and over by the swings and start talking to the girls and asking the Hezekiah Pitty's daughters to come out and play, most of the time, I've seen it happen a lot, where those swings gradually start moving on their own and they start picking up speed, going faster and faster. And if you take a picture, you will get an orb sitting on one of the swings. Pretty much, St. Augustine is one big unmarked cemetery. You see, if your family couldn't afford a burial plot for you in town, then you were buried where you lie. Maybe it was in your front yard, maybe it was in your backyard, maybe it was right under the floorboards in your house. And since St. Augustine has been burnt down and rebuilt so many times, not all of those buildings were built back on their original foundations, so the bodies could be pretty much anywhere. So at any point as you walk through this town, you don't know who or what it is you're walking over.